Hello, fellow wanderers. Welcome to our episode today.
So really, that is really the scope of mental health.
I could have philosophical conversations that would last hours.
Maybe some of the things that fortify us and help us make new friends as opposed to just having alcohol as a friend
Yep.
is knowing how our story is our story, but we are more than just our story.
That is powerful. Our story is our story, but we are more than our story.
Right.
Wow. I wanna. There's a statistic that I read in a psychology book somewhere that people with mental health, when mental health misaligns, are 3 times more likely to use alcohol to self-medicate because they do not like. First of all, the asking for help is a whole different experience,
Right.
and not even wanting to ask for help because the alcohol then self-soothes and they don't need to have to self-regulate. Can we talk about how that interaction of mental health disorders or challenges, and some of them are seasonal, some of them are caused by the season you are in your life,
Right.
having such a huge impact on even the beginnings of use of alcohol and drugs leading to addiction?
That is such a broad question.
I know.
So I don't know.
But let's touch
I
on
don't
it
know
just a
where to
little
start.
bit. Yeah.
I don't know where to start because it's so broad, right? Um, where do you want us to start? Because it's a broad question. Where do you want us to start?
Let's start with how accurate is it that people who are going through that point in time or who have lifelong issues
Yeah,
are 3 times more likely to use alcohol to self-soothe?
that makes so much sense. It does, right? If let's go back to the example of anxiety. If you know hanging out with alcohol will quieten your mind, like if you have racing thoughts, right?
Present.
Right? Or if you have crippling social anxiety, just what it does to the brain, of course you're going to take that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because it's so easily available, of course you're going to take that. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Just thinking about how much impact a seasonal experience might have or lean into impacting how somebody can get addicted.
I think the premise really, if and I go back to the idea of what we were talking about grief earlier, right? Is it's no wonder that alcohol use is such a trusted friend because look around us. Look around us. And this is my this is the thing why I really struggle when we try to pathologize mental health. Because if we look at the structures and the systems that we're living in, the constant decay of morals, the degradation of the environment, the fact that your 1,000 bob that you used to buy stuff yesterday and you go to the supermarket the next day, the items have decreased because of inflation. I mean, think about it.
That day-to-day living.
Day-to-day living is incredibly hard. And then we're doing this without a vibrant, robust social system. Of course we will be depressed. Of course we will be angry. Of course we're going to feel lost. Of course that's going to rise our sense of anxiety.
Yep. Yep. And then you have this.
That is so available, this friend, that for a moment you don't have to think about how messed up things
Everything
are.
is. Everything is. And I
Yeah.
love the metaphor of thinking of alcohol, and for some people, drugs,
Right.
as a friend, because that's what it feels like. In a world where it almost feels like betrayal is so rampant, in a world where it feels like you're alone, even in a crowd, it's easy to lean into the friend that doesn't judge you, that doesn't tell you what you're wearing is a problem, that doesn't tell you what they think about your weight or your height or the amount of makeup you put on, right?
Right.
And you know, it is no wonder that we are globally having to battle these issues constantly, because it almost challenges the very human experience that it is, and the very your very last nerve and its ability to put up with pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And then all that stuff is happening where you have this glorification of alcohol. You take this drink, you're cooler, you're smarter, you're around cute babes, you have this flashy
Right.
car.
Oh, God.
Oh my God. You are like this person.
Yes.
I don't have to worry about rent.
Yes. You're a person, like you even seen.
Yes, you're even seen. And think about the importance we have about being seen. I think a lot of it might be tied with the way that we survived as a species was through tribes. So you needed to be part of a tribe in order to survive.
And that's still so applicable today, isn't it? We
Right.
want to belong to a group. We want to be
Yeah.
part of something.
Yes.
And social acceptability in a lot of our communities is almost
everything.
dependent on whether you imbibe or not.
Right. And as we talked in the other episode, where alcohol is like a glue that brings us together, right? Who doesn't want to be part of the crowd
Yeah.
and the group,
Yeah.
right? And so if you're dealing with all the other stuff, whether it's akinama depression, akina social anxiety, akinatophobias, all those things. But when you drink, then you are passable. Then when you're normal.
Yes.
Who doesn't want to be normal? Who doesn't want to be normal?
Somebody needs to tell folks being normal is overrated. I realize now that being normal is overrated, because we have normal is cultural. Normal is geographical.
Right.
Because what is normal here in Kenya is not normal and I'm going to pick an African country because I want to keep our context very much to Africa, because a lot of challenges that we face, at least I can relate to, are African based. I know
Yeah.
globally we have issues with addiction, but when you think about it, it's so rampant, I guess, to want to belong to a group, to be counted literally as I'm important. I need to be seen almost.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is literally. I think it's literally wired, right? You have to belong. You don't want to be like a weird person.
Because being weird is a bad thing, right?
Yeah, but then the thing is, so you said until recently being normal wasn't all that, right? But I think that also comes with experience and time. When you sort of like this, that sort of space of self-acceptance, and maybe part of the tools, part of the friends that can replace alcohol is self-acceptance. Because imagine if you accept yourself and you say, enyewe, for instance, like you said, every November I feel like crap. Or in my case, right now I'm in my grief season. I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm not working very much. I just want to stay at home and just, I don't know, eat fries. Just leave me alone, right? If we said, enyewe, that feeling is okay.
We would give ourselves permission to be human.
Yes.
To be human, to
Yes.
experience the feelings and be okay with experiencing
And be okay
them.
with that. And be okay with that. And I think maybe that's the medicine, being okay with that, right? And it's okay to be just weird. I mean, we are not a homogeneous group of people. Even zebras, they all look the same, but the two stripes are all different.
Yep.
Then
Yeah.
why are we trying to be like everybody else? Why? I forgot to mention this.
Go for it.
Okay, so Paula, I'm using your sort of experience of anxiety.
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. The other thing, what I find it problematic is when we pathologize a lot of these things, okay? Because what if we looked at anxiety as a protective mechanism, right? Sir,
Keep
okay?
going. Keep
All
going.
right? Anxiety is serving a purpose.
It is.
Yes. What purpose do you think it serves?
It keeps you from getting hurt.
Right.
Because you're like, if I put myself out there and I fall flat on my face, I'd rather not. So, that anxiety
just pulls you.
shrinks you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Imagine if we said anxiety is the one that helps you get off, like not go into danger.
Yes.
Right?
Self-preservation.
Self-preservation. So if we look to self-preservation as not a bad thing, right?
So you
Yeah.
wouldn't be fighting it as much.
Yes. Or I really hate those two labels, but we're just going to work with the labels, right? So what if we say it like depression, that sadness? So what if we looked at the sadness not as a character flaw, but an indication that you're deeply human?
And not as a weakness, because it almost feels like when you say, I'm feeling depressed, or even if you're diagnosed as depressed,
Right.
it's almost said as a weakness. Like this person is weak for being
Weak.
depressed,
I
or
mean,
weak for being anxious.
Right. What if depression could be like the sadness, the profound sadness, the profound grief that comes with living this life? What if we looked at it that way?
It will definitely change how we deal with people in our
Right.
lives who are dealing with it.
Yes.
But it also help us to be kinder to ourselves as
Right.
we navigate
Yes.
that whatever we're dealing with at that point in time.
Right. And I think that would mean then if we leaned into that and reframed these sort of emotional states, that's the word I was looking for. Instead of calling them mental health, I hate that word. I hate that word. Maybe if we looked at it as emotional states, okay, then some are more intense than others. So if we said like depression is maybe an expression of, let's say, sadness or loss, or just an overwhelming pain, okay? Because it's with depression, it's sort of we retreat inward, okay?
Yeah.
So if we looked at it that way, then the antidote would be maybe building more community, having more people bear witness, right? Having more people speaking their truth, kindness, generosity of others, right? Maybe that's where the antidote is.
I agree. I feel like kindness is so vital, but so lacking in this world right now. It almost feels like people think if you're kind, you're weak.
Wow, yeah. I don't know what happened.
I have no idea. I have no clue. But it feels lately like if you're the kinder you are, it's like people assume, if you're kind, you're a doormat, and so it makes you weak. Yet it is simply the acknowledgement that every other person is as human as you are,
Right.
right? And not necessarily that, it's competition for everything. I
Yeah.
feel like.
I think maybe how do I put it? Maybe we don't talk enough about discernment, about building that muscle of discernment. And maybe this is a reflection of where I'm also thinking, not only at my practice, but just looking at the world, is we when it comes to this emotional state, aka mental health, I think we underestimate or underscore the significance of evil. I think we never talk about evil,
No.
right? Like there are some people who are just, what the hell? Right? Right? Like honestly. Right? Yes, right. Senior.
Don't get me started.
Right. And so imagine now you who's moving the world, as you said, like with kindness. And then you stumble onto this person who is exhibiting this profound evilness. And there's no structure, there's nothing that has prepared you to be in contact with that. I think when we look at emotional states, I think a lot of the things are reflections also of coming into contact with this evilness, however it looks like. You know, they're going to call it like, they're going to call it like psychopathic behavior or whatever. Izo imagina zote, right? Imagine the sheer horror. And then what happens to you as a human being. And then if we are wired to connect, then I imagine what you've gone through and the pain of it. And kumuka I'm internalizing it. So wouldn't I not get sad? Wouldn't I not become depressed? Wouldn't I not then want something to help me manage it?
Help me soothe. Help me feel better about myself
Right.
and the situation.
And you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to take you back to discernment because it's interesting. I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago, just in my head. And I was like, when you think about discernment is almost this ability to be able, that is a skill that grows over time, to be able to, using a word to define a word, to discern a situation. But for those people who've had trauma, right, and do not have the ability to trust themselves,
Yeah.
how then do you build that muscle of discernment when what you perceive as your choices have either got you hurt in the
Yeah.
past,
Right.
and you're like, well, I made that decision and it ended up, sort of biting me in the behind, and I made that choice in a loved one and they ended up betraying me. How then do you build that discernment muscle to a point where you begin to trust yourself again?
Wow. Okay, it's so fucked up.
It,
Really.
it is, because
It
when you
really
think about
is.
discernment,
Imagine. Yeah.
it's your ability to trust your instincts, your decisions, and having confidence in the decision you make to be a good one and a discerning one given the choices that you have.
But let me tell you, and I like, first of all roads lead back home. Like I've sat with myself and also with, supporting my clients, my amazing, shout out to my clients. And I realized the impact of trauma is it muddles that instinctual nature that we have.
That.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
it just brings Mother Rodani. Sorry, I don't have an English.
There's no English equivalent to Matogodanyo. It's okay. Hopefully people will understand.
well,
Matogodanyo is just
it just
Matogodanyo.
it's like, I think maybe the best one we can think about is like scrambling. It just like scrambles that frequency that we have. Because if we look at ourselves as beings, like if you look at a dog or if you look like at a cat, right? They have this instinctual
Instincts.
wire to run,
To do what they need to do.
right,
Yes.
in order to survive.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And when you've experienced childhood trauma, right, that instinctual knowing is severed.
Disconnected completely.
Right?
Completely.
Right. So to answer your question, how then does someone then be able to build that muscle? I think part of it is engaging in introspective practices like therapy. I really think you especially, I'm sorry, you look, you,
No. I'm looking at you because I'm thinking, I have told people, I'm like, all adults
Uh-huh.
need therapists.
Yes.
I have said this and I will say it. Therapist does not mean there's anything wrong with you.
Right.
Therapy does not mean you're broken. And spoiler alert to anyone who doesn't know, we're all broken. FYI, if you're thinking you're whole, I hate to break it to you. We're all broken in one way or another. And therapy does not make you crazy. Therapy does not mean you're bad. Therapy does not mean you need help so much more than anybody else. I think adulting itself needs therapy. So please continue.
You know, I'm just listening to you and I'm thinking about the current state of our country right now. And without naming names, but you all know who I'm talking about.
We all know where we're at. We all know where we're at. I think the whole world knows where we're at right now.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think about all this behavior that we have seen, this sort of ostentatious disregard for the lives of people and the earth, right? I don't even know what it is. Like, when I look at it as not just as a human being, but someone who supports folks, all I'm seeing is an expression of mental health issues, really. Because how? How do you, I feel like I'm going to say something, but, you know, the types of complete lack of self-awareness.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. And others may even look at it as, okay, we are not really big on diagnosis here. But, you know, what could be termed as narcissistic behavior? Right?
Which is then labeled
Right.
as self-care or as speaking up for self when that's not what it is.
That's not what it is.
Yeah.
Right? And then, so I think we as a country right now are being whiplashed by being gaslit.
Direction. And from every direction, right?
Every direction you can think of. Every direction you can think of, right? And so it is no wonder that we have such a really good relationship with alcohol.
I know.
Right? Such a good relationship with alcohol. Because where? Right?
Where else do you go?
Where else do you go? Okay? And so I think even when we're talking about mental health, we cannot forget the idea that we are living in a system. Like we are part of a system. And what is happening systemically has an impact on the personal. Do you know? So if we have leaders who lack self-awareness, more often than not, maybe they came from very humble backgrounds, where there was maybe abandonment or extreme poverty, which, by the way, we all know it has an impact on the physical brain.
That deprivation at
Right,
that age.
at that age. So
cause
this-
leaves a mark. Leaves a mark.
So these two behaviors we are seeing, huh? All these two behaviors that we are seeing, right, are sometimes I feel they didn't start here. They had their genesis from home, whether it is that particular generation or intergenerational stuff.
And transgenerational.
And transgenerational stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's talk about long-term alcohol use. We know it includes physical effects.
Yeah.
I've talked about a few of them. We've talked about how it has a physical impact on the brain, how it causes various diseases, metabolism, weight gain or weight loss on each extreme end. But let's talk about long-term alcohol misuse with mental health.
I mean, it's so unfortunate what it does to the brain and how it now, and I'm glad you listed like the physical stuff, because the physical stuff has an impact on the mental, psychological stuff.
Yes.
So if, let's say, we all know that prolonged alcohol use that builds tolerance and
Yes.
dependency. So that means it varies from people to people, right? is if now it has impacted your mobility. Now, always you walk, always you Tembea Street. So, now imagine how that makes you feel.
And
Yeah.
this cycle creates this cycle that you need to
Right.
run away from that feeling again.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Or the way that it impacts memory.
And you can't remember things.
So you can't remember stuff. Imagine how you can't remember anything. Imagine how that makes you feel. Imagine the ways that it's like you are in this world, in this sort of bubble, and it's just shrinking. The walls are like
Getting smaller and smaller.
in you.
And
Yeah.
you know, like the financial, also the financial
Yes.
impact that long-term alcohol use creates in the
Yeah.
family and for the individual,
Yes.
and how then that impacts again. You feel like I didn't pay my bills last month. What use am I of?
Yes.
What am I good for? You go back to the alcohol, which is also creating another cycle of financial abuse
Yes.
on self, but also on those
Others,
around you, and how
right.
that looks like.
And that shame, we're back to that shame
Yes.
spiral, right? And so imagine now this one experience has a societal impact. Right?
Yeah.
And then even think about productivity, for instance. So that if that person, let's say, was a doctor, and I don't think we talk enough about functional alcoholism.
Present in the room, functional
Right?
alcoholics, and
Right?
what it does.
Yes. So you who used to be, you're just for the weekend, you're just for the sherehe, right? And then now sherehe is Monday. It's no longer Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sherehe is like on Wednesday.
Yep.
Imagine how that impacts your productivity, and then how that impacts our sort of economic markers.
Statistically speaking, productivity, long-term use, alcohol abuse costs, and this is statistics from the United States because that's where a lot of statistics are consolidated, but it costs annually millions of dollars for the workplace in absences,
Right.
in lost hours of work, because somebody is at work but they're not really at work.
Right.
You know, they're present but they're not really present. In terms of insurance, because of the complications that alcohol comes with, and how much it affects productivity. So yes, company-wise, but I also think on the impact on the family.
Yes.
When a parent, be it male or female, is not making time for their partner, they're not making time for their children. And so that bonding or that relationship building is not happening because that time is being occupied by alcohol, which then affects the mental, the emotional states, which
Right.
then goes ahead to create a cycle where you need more
Yeah.
alcohol just to get through the day until it becomes an untenable process.
It really is. And then you think about now, like you mentioned, let's say a family situation where you have your partner and you have kids. And then now those ones, now the impact on them. So this should never end,
It doesn't.
right?
It doesn't, which
It
is why these
doesn't.
conversations are so important,
Yes.
because we need to recognize that if I'm a child and my father is, or my mother, because now it's not even a gender thing anymore, and
Right.
I feel like it's so important sometimes to say that.
Yeah.
Alcohol misuse affects both genders.
Yes,
It's not
it
it
does.
doesn't affect one more than the other. It affects
Yeah.
both genders. If I'm a child looking at my parent who's constantly drunk, who cannot operate without alcohol, it opens a door for generational misuse of it, because it's so normalized. You see it every day. This is what's at home, and you assume that this is what's normal. And then it just keeps going and going, and until they get to the point where hopefully they know better or can see better and intentionally decide if they get the tools to be able to do better.
Right.
Then how do we expect people to be able to get out on the other side?
I don't want to sound conspiracy. I don't want to sound like
Conspiracy theorists,
I don't
bring
want to
it on,
sound like
bring
a
it on.
conspiracy theorist, but sometimes I think, they're doing this stuff knowing very well. I don't know. Maybe they want to put it into little things, little work things. I don't know, because it doesn't make sense.
But let's be fair, alcohol is a multi-million-dollar industry
it
that
is.
feeds into other industries.
Yes. So do you honestly think it serves corporations to tell you, they'll tell you alcohol use is harmful for your health.
As long as you keep drinking.
They just do that kanini over there. But look at their advertising. Do you get like it's
Yes.
so messy. It's
is.
so messy.
It is.
Right? And so I think what it is we hope that resources such as your podcast humanizes the experience for so many, because remember, like the imagery that we have about alcohol, folks who are navigating or struggling with alcohol use is usually a dude at aqua tu kwa kona po, or a guy aqua
Or
kwa
in a
ditch.
ditch.
It's always a ditch.
Yes. There's always a ditch.
It's always a ditch. It is never.
There's always a road not being crossed.
I don't know why. It's always you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like you know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
I think what it is, I think we also have to say is unfortunately, and I think it's important to put this out there, unfortunately some of us will not recover.
And that breaks my heart.
Yeah,
It does. It does. Because again, just the impact of sobriety, of going sober.
Right.
And I touched this on another episode, is that going sober itself, just even if you slowly stop alcohol, the impact on the physical, on the kidneys and on the liver and all of that, sometimes it's too much of a shock on the system for certain people.
Yeah.
And so not everybody's going to be able to completely go sober. And that is heartbreaking because, again, corporations and multi-million-dollar industries that feed into other industries, because let's be quite frank. Alcohol production is a whole industry on its own. The diseases that are a consequence of that, pharmaceutical industries that create all sorts of, you've got the drugs for the hangovers and the pill that you take that gets you over the hangover, all of those things.
Right.
And the therapy, because let's be honest, in most of the developed world, and a little bit in our country, but I think in a lot of the developed world, therapy and the centers and sobriety centers are mining or minting a nice amount of money from folks who keep falling off the wagon and trying to get back on. And that's why I advocate for doing the work before the sobriety. Do the work of the therapy. Do the unearthing of the murkiness and all of that stuff that is hidden or that hides under alcohol. Do the work of unearthing them, recognizing them, dealing with them as much as possible before you even go, I think I can stop now.
Okay. I just want to plead the fifth.
I want to know why you're pleading the fifth.
I am just
We're
pleading-
almost running out of time, but I want to know why you're pleading the fifth. Talk to me now.
I will not agree or disagree with Nasamangaje about the costs of a lot of these treatment facilities. But you're right. There is an industry around recovery, right? And I actually like that approach of, you have how do they say, a come to Jesus moment. And you say, hey, Anyawe, here I need help. What can I do here first?
Yes.
And then slowly start outsourcing that process and recognizing it's a lifelong process. I think that's the point
Yes.
that people don't really recognize.
Yes.
How much it's a lifelong process.
It doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop,
No.
right? Because life doesn't stop, right?
It doesn't. And the fact that your brain already developed neural pathways to solving problems, and now you're almost reteaching it constantly
Yeah.
that shortcut it used to use is
Yeah.
no longer accessible, because when lives and you can't force your brain anymore.
Yeah.
Your brain is like, we can just default to this. It worked for such a long time. Why don't we just go here? It's the shortest, it's the easiest.
Can I tell you something interesting about neuroplasticity? Is, yes, you talked about that kanjia. this is how this has always worked.
Yes.
And then it is sort of, then you have your two dopamine reward system over there, like, yeah, let's do it this way.
That's good.
So when you're doing this like new stuff, that shit is difficult, like you said, because there's no neural pathways, there's no GIA, shit is all brand new, right? But the thing is this, with small, consistent steps, I think that's the point. With small, consistent steps, your brain starts to create new neural pathways, I think around 21st, 22nd day, right? So what we're saying is your brain, because I really believe the brain is sort of like a big thing in terms of behavior, will work with you. Do you get?
Yeah.
It's what you feed your brain, your physical brain, your behavioral brain, your cognitive brain. I know all those sounds are three different brains, but it's the same brain.
Place.
It's still the same brain, right? But it's doing the small, consistent things. And then when you do those small, consistent things, let's give an example, okay? So you kwambia yourself, okay, since I always tunananga sherehe kila Friday, tunarudi Sunday, right? So we go every Friday, we come back Sunday. Me, when I go out, I usually drink, let's say, I don't know, maybe 5 beers a night. Let me start by doing 3.
3. Yeah.
Let me start by doing 3, okay? All right, so you do that for maybe 1 month. Okay, you're reducing. So you haven't gone cold turkey. And then you go 1. And then you go maybe alternate, right? And you're slowly weaning yourself from it. Because the withdrawals, unless you have sort of medicated support, are difficult.
Literally could kill you.
Literally, right? As you know, like I think you've talked about it, right? Are literally difficult. So you have to be able to, if you're going to do this, is small incremental steps, not big stuff. You're not going to go like, nimemaliza, nimewacha. No. Slowly weaning yourself. And then as you wean yourself, you start incorporating other tasks.
Other things.
Other things, right? Like I know you've talked about the gym.
Yes. Exercising is big for me. It keeps me sane.
You, right? Okay, so imagine like as you were weaning yourself, then you started going to the gym.
I did.
Yeah. So you're not like weaning yourself at ukotu
and leaving a vacuum.
A vacuum. Oh my God, that is the best word, right?
Because if you're weaning yourself off this, you're creating space.
Yes.
And if you don't put something else, a healthier habit, something else will get in that space.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily going to be healthy.
What's that line they say? Nature abhors a vacuum.
Nature abhors a vacuum.
Right.
Yep.
So you have to ingiza, even if it's like a small thing. Even if it's like a small thing. Like let's say you say, okay, when I'm going for sherehe, when I'm going out for the weekend, let me spend, because my family always tell me, oh, you don't even talk to us. Let me spend an afternoon with my family.
Yes.
Before I go.
And create that trade-off.
And a trade-off, right?
Yes.
Or you can say, I will text my partner when I'm at sherehe.
Yes.
Small, little incremental steps.
I think that is a fantastic way to wrap us up. Hey, I have talked until my English has dried up. Thank you all so much for joining us. We hope we've shed a little bit of light on mental health and its interaction with addiction, alcohol addiction in particular. Please keep wondering with us. If you like this content, please share, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. We really appreciate your support on this journey because it matters to all of us. Before I wrap up, again, I am going to continue to say this. Help, support is one extended hand away. You're not as alone as you think, no matter how you feel. Remember, one step at a time, we can do this together. We will see you next week as we handle the next human emotional state and figure out how to life this life together. We'll see you then.